Any venture that ignores small problems early pays for them later at full price. Last week, we learned that you cannot remove a thing, you can only replace it. That was half the law. Today, we focus on the half that nobody teaches. By the end of this teaching, you will know why replace things drift back and the 10-minute process that keeps them in. Welcome to the Life Builders. My name is Patience Udo. If you're meeting me for the first time, I'm a clarity coach. I work with visionaries at crossroads, regardless of their age, who are confused or overwhelmed about their dreams. Today, we look at the law of keeping. Think about a garden. Nobody plants weeds. You do not sow them. You do not water them. You do not encourage them in any way. They simply arrive, and they arrive fastest in the beds that you stopped visiting. Now hold that picture because it explains almost every collapse change that you've ever experienced. Now, if that picture just explains something to you, hit the subscribe button. I drop a new teaching every Saturday for visionaries at crossroads. So let's look at keeping in 3 parts. Part 1 is your mind. We start where we started last week, and that is your thoughts. You named the thought, you wrote the true sentence that replaced it, you said it out loud when the old one showed up, and it worked for a season. Then a hard week came, and the old thought was back in the room as though it had never left. Here's what I want you to hear. That's not failure, and it is not weakness. It is simply the nature of a replaced thing. That's why Proverbs 4 and verse 23 says, keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Keep. That's what that word says, because it is present tense and it is continuous. It is not received, it is not decided, it's kept. And that's the language of a watchman or a gardener, not the language of one single brave decision. And notice the reason given. Out of it are the issues of life. Everything else flows from what is kept there, which means the small task of guarding your heart is actually the biggest job you have because it protects everything else. So what does keeping look like in a mind? The person who says the true sentence every morning at the same time will still have it in a hard week. The person who says it only when they remember will lose it in that first busy season and then conclude that they are the problem. You see, they were never the problem. They just had no system built around it. And part 2 is your rooms. And that talks about the relationships that you've started building. 2 weeks ago, you picked 3 and not 30 connections. That was easy, but this is the harder half. Those 3 connections you picked will go cold quietly if nobody warms them on purpose. And this is the strange part. There will be no argument. Nobody necessarily will offend anybody. There will be nothing to apologize for and therefore nothing to notice. Just one busy week that became a month and then a season. And then one day, a small awkwardness sitting between you and the message that you keep meaning to send. You see, neglect is really loud, but it is still dangerous. And that's why Proverbs 18 and verse 24 says that a man that has friends must show himself friendly. He must show himself. It is an action, it is not an emotion, which is the best news in the teaching because emotions cannot be scheduled, but actions can. Want, in other words, is a schedule. So you keep your rooms like this. Write down 10 names, the people whose relationship your life or your work genuinely needs. Once a month, reach one of them with something that serves and ask for nothing at all. And when you meet someone new, send one specific message within 2 days about something that you actually discuss. Then on the day that you genuinely need something, you are not reappearing out of nowhere. You are simply continuing a conversation that never stopped. And part 3 is your business. As a startup builder, you wrote your process down, you trained somebody, you stepped back, and it held. Then 1 week, you answered a question the page already answered because answering was quicker than pointing to the right place. Then you did a task yourself just quickly. Then new work arrived and went straight into your head the old way because there was no time to write it down. No time. What you will soon discover is that nobody dismantled your system. You just stopped visiting that part of the garden, and the weeds did what weeds do best, and they started taking over. That's why Proverbs 27 and verse 28 says, "Be diligent to know the state of your flock and look well to your herds." Now think about what a shepherd is actually doing when he counts. He's not accusing the sheep of anything. He counts because sheep wander without meaning to, and because a missing one is cheaper to find today but more expensive to find in a month. So counting is not distrust, counting is keeping. And in business, the drift is always quiet before it is expensive. So here's the system that I leave you with. Spend 10 minutes once a week, the same day every week, on the following self-examination. Number 1, what did I do this week that somebody else was already trained to do? Number 2, what question was I asked that a written page should have answered? And number 3, what new task is living only in my head? 10 minutes, that's the entire maintenance cost of your freedom, and it is the cheapest thing you will do all week. Now let's get to the connecting truth for all of them. One law in 3 rooms: your mind, your relationships, your work. And in all 3, the same quiet mistake. We treat change as an event when change is actually a tendency. You do not move the new thing in and walk away. You keep it there. You maintain it there. Galatians 6 and verse 9 says, "Let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not." Notice the first thing, in due season, not immediately, which means there's always a stretch of keeping between the change and the harvest. And that stretch is precisely where most people quietly stop. Scripture says, if we faint not. That's the whole condition. Not if we're brilliant, not if we're extraordinary. If we do not stop keeping, we will do well. So understand this. You did not fail. You just stopped keeping it. And keeping is a much smaller thing than starting, which means the way back is far shorter than you think. And I close with the weekend assignment, and it is 1 sentence long. Pick 1 room, name the thing that you are keeping in it, and choose the day of the week that you will check it. That's it. If it is your mind, the true sentence and the morning that you will say it. If it is your relationships, the 10 names and the one you will reach this month. If it is your business, the 10-minute check and the day it lives on. And if what you actually need is the map itself, the clear picture of your year that tells you what is worth keeping in the first place, that is what we build together, a Map Your Year in 5 Days course. 5 days, 1 live cohort. I will not put a price on it here, but if you want in on the next one, then comment MAP below and I'll send you the link to join the wait list. Don't forget to subscribe for the teaching every Saturday, and it's now on Substack too, so you can have it in your inbox each week. God bless you, and I'll see you soon on another purpose-driven journey.